and welcome to Friday the 29th of May, and a big shout out to my mother Dulcie, whose birthday it is today. She doesn't want to actually acknowledge it's her birthday today, but I figured we may as well put it out there, as only daughters can do. So welcome to our daily Facebook live stream. This is our 11th week, shortly heading into our 12th week of doing daily Facebook live streams during this COVID period. And for those who don't know me or haven't joined us before, my name is Bron Pearson and I'm from Pinnacle People Solutions. So we provide human resource services, solutions, strategies, support in whatever you need to regionally based small to medium sized businesses and not-for-profit organisations. And we are here to help you and your business through these really challenging COVID-19 times. So for the last 11 weeks, we have been and will continue to be live at 9:15 every weekday with updates, pardon me, on new information from the previous 24 hours. Good morning, everybody. And also more detailed information about topics relating to staffing and to business management. And those topics can be suggestions from our audience, and I'd warmly welcome those suggestions to keep coming in. We've had a considerable number. Please keep them coming. And also, sometimes there are topics that we think it's timely for us to be talking with you about that may be coming up or becoming issues as we might have identified them based on what's happening in the economy or the marketplace, or with employment law or government directives, or indeed what our clients are facing. So very happy to answer any questions that you have as we go along. Please pop them in the chat screen here, and I'll be very happy to answer them if I can right now. Otherwise, some questions, depending on their complexity, we might need to leave until the following live stream, which the next one, of course, will be Monday. So outside of this, of course, you can contact us, myself or my fantastic team, anytime via Facebook. Of course, you can direct message us on Facebook or private message us. You can also email, telephone, website, YouTube, LinkedIn, lots of different ways that you can get hold of us. So that information will come to you in just a moment. And I would encourage you to get in touch with us. Any questions that you have about your business, we would be delighted to help you with. Thank you so much, team. God, they're on the ball. It's fantastic. They've just put up the contact details for us in the chat screen, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're very happy to chew the fat with you about your business and to help you with anything that you might need. These daily Facebook live streams are also recorded, and they are available after the event up in Facebook. But we've also popped them up onto our YouTube channel, onto our website, together with a fact sheet for each live stream, which can help you with implementing anything that you need to into your business. And also on our LinkedIn site. So you can get access to our live streams well and truly after the event. And in fact, we are finding that a lot of people are doing that. You may not necessarily be available at a 9:15 every morning to listen in live. So those are going to continue to be available to you. We're archiving them, so they will continue to be available as we move forward. So breaking news. Okay, so to start with, any big changes or things we think you should be reminded about since yesterday, being Thursday the 28th of May. So just a reminder, there's a couple of deadlines coming up on the 31st of May, which in fact is Sunday. First of all, the New South Wales Government $10,000 grants for New South Wales businesses are still available. We'll put up the link for you to apply for that via Service New South Wales, but that will close on Sunday. So please be mindful of that. Get up there and have a look and see if your business might be eligible. If you've got any doubts whatsoever, talk to your accountant or your bookkeeper, and they should be able to help you to determine that eligibility. Also, the other looming deadline on Sunday, again, the 31st of May, is JobKeeper applications. So it's really important that you meet the deadline if you think you might be eligible for JobKeeper and you haven't yet gone through that process. Obviously, that's a big part of today's topic is where are you at with JobKeeper. So we'll unpack this a little bit more in a moment. For those who are ski fans and were thinking that this year's season might be a non-event, the New South Wales government has announced, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that the state ski fields will be allowed to reopen with all the appropriate safety measures, etc., on the 22nd of June. So for all of you ski mad people, enjoy that. And obviously, the state government will provide further information about what that looks like and what the safety measures, etc., will need to be in place and so forth. So moving on to JobKeeper. So a couple of more recent announcements about the JobKeeper scheme, because obviously it's been in the media every 24 hours pretty much since it was announced back in April. The most recent news around it is that the RBA Governor, Philip Lowe, in giving advice to a Senate committee or feedback to a Senate committee, has said, and this was yesterday, I believe, that the JobKeeper scheme, in his view, may need to be extended beyond its initial 6-month period. So there is a lot of pressure and discussion happening around that at the moment. We do know that the estimated cost of JobKeeper at 130 billion is now only sitting at around 60 to 70. That's been an issue of debate and consternation as well. But we do know that the federal government is considering revamping elements of the JobKeeper wage subsidy scheme. And part of the reason for that is that there's an anticipated $100 billion financial cliff beyond September for a lot of businesses. And there's a number of reasons for that. The government is working with banks and has been, to help hundreds of thousands of Australians once mortgage deferrals end. And those deferrals are scheduled to end in September and October. So in that sort of broader context, Philip Lowe made it clear to the government yesterday that it will need to support the economy as it recovers from the pandemic, possibly for years, through infrastructure spending and wage subsidy programs like JobKeeper. Of course, JobKeeper is due to end at the end of September, 27th of September, but there is growing concern that ending at that time will in fact pull about 100 billion in support from the economy at a time when unemployment's likely to be around 9%. And the bank deferrals on repayments, and that at this stage is running at 1 in 14 mortgages. That 6-month grace period is due to expire in September and October. And deferrals on business loans worth about 85 billion are due to end around about the same time. So there's a bit of a cluster coming at the end of September and October. So watch this space in terms of what the government might decide to do about programs like JobKeeper. But for the moment, we know that it's finishing up at the end of September. As at the end of yesterday, we had 18 new cases of coronavirus in Australia in 24 hours. 10 of those were in Victoria, 7 in WA and 1 in New South Wales. There's been a reminder that it's incredibly important for us to continue to look after our general health, including our mental health. If any of us have chronic medical conditions, we need to be making sure that we're still seeing our GP, getting tests done as we might need to. Physical distancing measures, of course, continue to remain absolutely critical with restrictions easing. So let me just give a quick reminder about those. And the first is stay home if you're sick. Get tested if your symptoms are anything like what they might be on the list for COVID. And employers, do not let your staff come anywhere near anybody if they're unwell or have any symptoms at all, and make sure that you're telling them they need to get tested. Wash your hands frequently. For employers, make sure that those hygiene measures are available and reminded, and signage is up and all the rest of it in your work environments. Stay at least a metre and a half from other people. One of the things we've had circulating is, oh, you know, if we're allowed to have more people at home and we're allowed to catch up with people again, can we hug them? No. You've still got to have that 1.5 metres distance. And there is, of course, encouragement from the government to download and activate the COVID Safe app. It's entirely up to you as to whether or not you do that. The government is clearly encouraging it. Employers are encouraging it, but it's been made very clear employers cannot make it mandatory. Some restaurants and service providers are requiring potential patrons or clients to sign up to the app before they come into the premises. And they're also doing things like temperature checking people, taking contact details, all of that stuff, so that they can track and trace effectively if anybody becomes ill. So the other thing that was announced on the 25th, so earlier this week, was, and this came out of the Prime Minister's address to the National Press Club, was around the government's plans around what they're calling JobMaker. Now, we're actually going to do a deep dive into what this looks like in much greater detail next Friday. So today you'll start to see our topics come out for next week, as I said. And Monday we will be doing unfair dismissal and other nasties. And there's lots of reasons we should be doing that right now, because they're well and truly on the increase, and the risk to businesses is higher than ever. So in these kind of times at the moment. So, but getting back to JobMaker, we will be doing a deep dive into what that looks like, how that's progressing, timetables, all of those sorts of things next Friday. So put that in your diaries. We will give you a link to the Prime Minister's address to the National Press Club, so that if you're interested to know what that looks like at this early stage, in terms of what the information is that he has talked about, then we will pop that up for you, and you can have a read at your leisure. So let's get into today's topic. Where are you at with JobKeeper? So it's been obviously about 2 months since the federal government, over 2 months now, since the federal government announced the JobKeeper package, initially budgeted at 130 billion, now looking to cost about 70, which has caused all the consternation and the debate over what should happen with the other 60 billion. So the design of the wage subsidy program, the JobKeeper program, is intended for Australians who've lost their jobs or been forced out of work due to the coronavirus package. So eligible employees began to receive the payment from the start of this month, backdated to the 30th of March when the scheme was first announced. So employers had until early May to make sure that those payments had been made. And then obviously to go through the process of applying for JobKeeper. And we'll give you some links as we go through today to make sure that you've got those easily accessible to you. If you haven't yet explored JobKeeper, or you've initially thought you weren't eligible, I think it's worthwhile, given that the deadline's Sunday, to get back up there and have another look. And we're going to give you some Q&A links that you can go to that might shortcut that for you, so that you can put that call into your accountant today to talk that through further if you think that would be relevant for you. Some businesses, since JobKeeper came in, have come under fire for asking their staff to work so they can earn the payment. This has been an area of great controversy since this program first came in, and that's raised questions about whether employers can make their employees work or perform other duties to receive the JobKeeper payment. So let's do a bit of a dive into that. So in asking where are you at with JobKeeper, let's go back through some of the fundamentals and some of the tricky elements, just so that you're really clear as employers and employees what's okay and what's not, what requires consultation, what needs to be in writing, all of those things. So obviously JobKeeper is a component of what's been a $320 billion response from the federal government to support provide economic support and to subsidise wages for businesses impacted by coronavirus. So it was designed to help employers pay their employees during the pandemic for up to 6 months with the provision of a reimbursement from the ATO. Eligible businesses need to first apply for the scheme before nominating their employees to receive the fortnightly payment of $1,500 a fortnight before tax. More than 910,000 businesses applied. Only about 700 odd ended up actually going through with that. And we're going to cover off some of those difficulties that employers have had with JobKeeper in a moment. Technically, under JobKeeper, it is not lawful to make an employee earn the JobKeeper allowance as such. JobKeeper is meant to help businesses which have seen a downturn in business because of coronavirus, and it's meant to help us pay our employees during this period of downturn. So say you work 2 days a week and have been stood down as a consequence of coronavirus. Therefore, you are at home for that period of time and you're eligible, if you're an eligible employee, to receive the JobKeeper allowance. And as employers, if we have staff in that kind of or a similar position that we've had to stand down, we're required to pass on the full benefit of that $1,500 to our staff member, even though their income may have been less than that, say $1,000 a fortnight. But JobKeeper isn't just available for those who are suddenly without work due to coronavirus. You're also able to receive it, and employers are able to claim it for you as employees if you're working and you've got the capacity to work. So one of the questions that we've had a billion times is can my employer, or as an employer, can I change the hours of my staff? It depends on the type of the change. So your hours can be reduced temporarily if you're a staff member as part of the JobKeeper enabling stand down directions that might be made by your employer, which is part of the Fair Work Act, the amendments that have been made for this period of COVID, and allows employers to reduce the number of days or hours that you usually work. And they may actually reduce those days and hours to the point of you earning $1,500 a fortnight, which is the JobKeeper payment less tax. What we know from the Fair Work Ombudsman is that an eligible employee, so a JobKeeper eligible employee, can be given the direction if they were unable to be usefully employed for their normal working days or hours due to the pandemic, or because of measures taken by the government to slow the spread of the virus. It doesn't, however, the JobKeeper enabling direction doesn't allow for employers to increase the number of hours that our staff work. So I need to make that really clear. You cannot force a staff member or try and coerce them to do work more than they usually would. You can't ask your staff member to work additional hours to mimic the number they would have had to work to receive the $1,500 a fortnight if they would normally earn less. That is very unlikely to be considered reasonable by the Fair Work Ombudsman. So very important to remember that. That's not to say that working more hours is out of the question while you're paying your JobKeeper eligible staff the JobKeeper payment. You can, as an employer, ask your employees if they want to work more hours, but any increase would need to be reasonable. And there's a whole lot of reasons that might not be reasonable or realistic for somebody's hours to be increased. And not so much now with schools having returned kids to the classroom full time, but a lot of people have been in the situation where they've had to homeschool, or they're having to care for other people who might have been at school or childcare and now can't because of, or haven't been able to up until now because of shutdown, isolation. It's still possible that those things exist where you might have children who would normally be in school or daycare who have autoimmune or other immune compromised conditions. So there might be lots of reasons why additional hours is just not feasible and not reasonable. You also have to consider the safety, health and safety, of course, of your staff in respect of any increased hours. So, can we as employers change the type of work that our staff do? And similar to the hours you work, staff work, the duties they perform at work can also be changed under a JobKeeper enabling direction. But in order for that to happen, certain conditions have to be met. So, as employers, we need to consider safety. We need to consider the skills and competencies of the particular staff member to do the changes of duties that we're looking at. And of course, they need to have the appropriate licenses, qualifications, etc., to undertake that work. And I have previously done deep dive into JobKeeper and also JobKeeper enabling directions. So go back and have a look at our fact sheets and our associated live streams for a deep dive into JobKeeper enabling directions. But as we're doing a recap today on where are you at with JobKeeper, we're just pulling out the main things that you need to be aware of as employers and as employees, so that you can continue to ride that JobKeeper wave lawfully, and you don't end up in mess that you didn't anticipate. So also, if you're going to change the type of work or want to change the type of work that your employees or one or more of your employees do, that direction also needs to be reasonable, otherwise it won't apply. So the duties must be related to the operation of the business that your staff work at, meaning odd jobs won't likely fill the bill. So if I was to ask one of my team if they would mind changing duties from the work that they normally do in any of the support areas that we provide, and come and clean my house or mow my lawns or something like that, no can do. So doing things that are completely outside of what the business would normally do is not okay. So also, the other thing to bear in mind is that if you need to ask one or more of your staff to do different duties, then those duties, depending on what they are, may actually attract a higher base rate of pay than what you're normally paying your staff for the work they would normally do. So depending on whether they're award covered or you've got an enterprise agreement in place, if that's the case, then you need to pay the person at the high rate for the different duties that they're doing. By the same token, you can't, however, reduce your staff members' rate of pay if the duties that you've now asked them to perform would actually typically normally attract a lower rate of pay. So you can't reduce it, but you would need to pay the higher rate if the higher rate applied for different duties. You also can't change the duties of someone straight away. And you can't actually give any of the JobKeeper enabling directions without notifying staff about a change in duties or hours or days at least 3 days before the change comes into effect through the JobKeeper enabling direction. You need to consult with staff about any of those changes or directions that you intend to give, and you need to keep a written record of it, both the consultation and the direction. So that's really important. I can't emphasize that strongly enough. I know I've been like a bit of a broken record about this, keeping everything in writing, having your employment contracts, dealing with issues. I know they're common themes that are coming out every day in terms of our daily Facebook live streams, but it's because it's so incredibly important, and we are starting to see employers trip up and Fair Work getting involved, and you don't want that. So one of the questions that we've had from employers is, how do I know if I'm following, that I'm following the rules, or what can my staff do if they think I'm not following the rules? So what I would encourage any employees to do who are concerned that maybe their employer isn't doing the right thing, whether that's intentional or otherwise, is to talk to them. If you're comfortable to do that, talk to the staff member, talk to your employer directly. But if that's problematic for any reason, or the answer doesn't seem to answer what you asked, then get some supported advice about your rights and entitlements, and have a further conversation. It could also potentially be a JobKeeper dispute. And those are being considered by the Fair Work Commission. So one of the other reasons to be asking the question today, where are you at with JobKeeper, and making sure that you're doing what you need to do, is that you don't want to be on the back end of a JobKeeper dispute as an employer. Because the Fair Work Commission's role will then be to arbitrate, mediate, or conciliate the dispute, and essentially make an order in relationship to that direction. So you want to be in control of your own canoe, and you really don't want to have another organisation taking control of that if you can help it. So make sure you're really well informed, and so forth. Oh, God bless my team. I tell you what, they are just legends. They've popped up the 16 questions to ask your accountant about JobKeeper, the link to that on Business Australia, and they've also put up the links to our previous live streams about JobKeeper enabling directions. Seriously, I am blessed. Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate that. The fact of the matter is that since JobKeeper came in and businesses have been scrambling to work out whether they're eligible, whether they're not eligible, whether they weren't eligible to start with, but they've since seen a downturn, can they still apply? The answer to those questions is yes. But what we do know is that JobKeeper is forcing businesses to make really difficult decisions. It has been it's been really difficult for some businesses. What we do know is more than 900,000 businesses initially registered interest in the JobKeeper scheme, but only just over 720,000 have signed up. And what has happened in between those two things is that some employers have discovered that they were ineligible. But the rules surrounding the JobKeeper scheme mean that others have been faced with incredibly difficult decisions about whether to sign up. And this may well be you. I may well be speaking to you as an employer at this point. We will give you the link to the ATO website so that you can have that clear information. What we know is that any businesses participating in JobKeeper must allow all eligible employees to access that $1,500 a fortnight payment before tax, including those that have been stood down or have been rehired after their positions being made redundant. Now, the intention of that applying to all eligible employees was to prevent employers from showing favouritism. But I have to say that requirement has inadvertently placed untenable financial burden on many businesses. So some casual employees who would usually only work at peak times are eligible for JobKeeper, while those who would normally earn less than $1,500 a fortnight are being paid in full under the scheme. So that's great news for workers. Don't get me wrong, I'm not averse to that in that respect. But for employers, for some employers, it's meant a wage bill that has risen significantly, just as income's plummeted or has disappeared completely. And the fact of the matter is that if you as an eligible employer under JobKeeper can't pay every single employee, and you need to pay them pretty much a month in advance because JobKeeper is being paid retrospectively, then businesses haven't been able to actually access the JobKeeper payment because they literally have found it too difficult to be able to do that. To make matters even more difficult, employers must obviously pay wages on time, but they have to wait to collect the subsidy from the ATO up to a month later. And that means that eligible businesses may require an additional cash injection to pay their employees the full amount of $1,500 a fortnight while they wait to be reimbursed by the ATO. There's also an element of risk, even with that, even with employers, who can do that, because there's no current mechanism for employers to recoup wages already paid if subsequently any workers are found to be ineligible for JobKeeper. So that's one of the other risks that has made a lot of employers really gun-shy. Some employers have taken the determination to cover wages out of their own pocket, or have taken out overdrafts so that they can retain all their employees. And when I've previously talked about JobKeeper and enabling directions and so forth, we've given links to information. All of the major financial institutions have created fast-track ways for businesses to get access to additional finance, but it's still additional finance, it's still debt. And that understandably freaks a whole lot of business owners out, particularly on the back end of drought and bushfires, when perhaps their overdraft facilities are already maxed. Some employers have not been able to avoid layoffs, meaning that they're forced to let team members go so they can afford to front the subsidy for other people. An economic recovery relies on employers who can manage to stay in business through this time. And as the crisis eases, businesses will likely once again expand their workforce and help as many Australians as possible return to work. But for that to happen, we need to be supporting our local businesses, and understanding that for now, those the kind of tough decisions that we all are grappling with as we go along. So we're popping up some links, Bless, to JobKeeper information from Fair Work Australia, and that's the detail on the JobKeeper provisions. So there's more detail in there around the enabling provisions and what you can and can't do, which I won't go into in a huge amount of detail now. We've done that before, so feel free to have a look at that. The other thing I would say is that be mindful of notifying staff in writing at least 3 days before a JobKeeper enabling direction is going to come into play. You can potentially do it shorter than that, but you'd need the written agreement of your staff. You need to consult with them or their representative about the direction and keep a written record of the consultation that you've done with the staff member. So 3 things. You need to notify them in writing that you intend to give a direction and JobKeeper enabling direction and what that looks like. You need to consult with them and keep a record of the consultation. And then you need to give the JobKeeper enabling direction in writing. What I would also say is that, and in our fact sheet, we'll give some examples of, and I might pick them up again on Monday as well, some examples of JobKeeper enabling directions that are okay and those that are not. But make sure that you understand your obligations under JobKeeper. You need to put everything in writing. The other thing about JobKeeper enabling directions is that they remain in force until the end of JobKeeper, which is the 27th of September, or until the Fair Work Commission makes changes that would make them null and void, or until you change and put in new ones. Now, we've got a number of businesses that are frequently changing their JobKeeper enabling directions around days and hours, for example, because their business is gradually ticking up. And so they're having to do those JobKeeper enabling directions quite regularly and change them regularly. That 3 days notice in writing, the documented consultation, and the enabling direction in writing again is a constant process that you need to go through every time you might need to change a JobKeeper enabling direction for a staff member. That is something really important to remember. So if you've got any questions, if you're in any doubt, please get in touch with us. We are more than happy to help you. We can walk beside you, do all of these direction settings, consultations, etc. with you, for you in some instances, as your HR partner, so to make sure that you're doing all of the things that you need to be doing. What I would also say in conjunction with this is check all of your employment contracts. If you do not have any in place, get appropriately worded contracts in place now, including position descriptions. I've also covered off last week the recent federal court decision about casuals. It's incredibly important that you're checking all of that for your casuals as well. Make sure you have appropriate employment contracts and position descriptions in place. This is incredibly important now as you're changing duties, hours, all of those sorts of things as you might be under JobKeeper. You need to have appropriate records and lists of duties and responsibilities. You're also lawfully required to have those in place, just to be clear. I would also, and I'm going to keep encouraging people to deal with performance or conduct issues now, irrespective of whether you're JobKeeper eligible or not. It's not irrelevant, because you need to be careful in the way that you would normally need to be careful whether or not you're JobKeeper eligible. But the behaviour you walk past is the behaviour you accept. and you're telling every single one of your other staff that that's acceptable. So you need to get in and deal with performance or conduct issues straight away. We can also help you with that. Make sure you're meeting all of your record keeping obligations, and if you don't know what they are, get up onto the Fair Work website and that will tell you what you're required to keep as far as records for your staff are concerned. We can also help you with that. And make sure you've got robust policy and procedures in place around all of this. If you're unsure at all about anything or everything that I've talked about this morning, please get in touch. We're more than happy to talk with you, give you advice, help you through this process. So look, thank you so much again for joining us today. It's always delightful to have our regulars as well as new people joining us all the time, and others that go back and have a look at our live streams after the event who may not be available at the time that we're streaming them. If you've got any questions about your specific business or you want us to help you out, contact us using any of those contact means that our team have put up in the chat screen this morning. Please join me again on Monday. Monday, I'll be doing a deep dive into unfair dismissal and other nasties. They're on the increase. The risk to businesses right now is astronomical. So get in touch if you want to talk about that or knowing what you don't know. Incredibly important. So please join us on Monday. Invite your colleagues and your friends. Share the notices that we'll be putting out about this. In the meantime, between now and then, have a fantastic weekend. Please hug the people that you're allowed to. Wave cheerily at those that you can't. Stay safe. Stay distant. 1.5 meters, people. Wash your hands, and we'll really look forward to seeing you on Monday. Take care.